Hello and welcome again in Simon for Simon having a talk about de-rendering, gnulib and other stuff in Debian.
Yes, thank you. Thank you and welcome. Good morning. Thanks for coming. I will talk about de-rendering gnulib in Debian. So what is gnulib? Gnulib is a source code, a reusable source code component, mostly written in C, M4, shell script, quite old languages. It's used by a lot of the top popcorn packages. You can see a short list here, but there are tons more. So it's quite widely used, but not that well known. So, and the reason it's not well known is because it's usually hidden within these upstream packages. So it's used in the upstream Git repositories as a submodule, and the code is inserted into the upstream projects using a --bootstrap script that runs the gnulib tool that generates and copies various files. Of course, this is done on the upstream maintainer's machine, and the resulting code goes into the official upstream tarball that Debian usually uses. So this results in a vendored copy of different versions of gnulib in all these different packages. So there is no synchronization about which gnulib version to use. All these packages and more that you see here, they will use whatever latest version of gnulib is available in Git when they prepare their release. That's how it usually works. And that presents some challenges. This gnulib code exists in the tarballs, but not in upstream Git normally. And even somewhat worse is that the structure of the Git submodule or gnulib Git submodule doesn't really match the structure in the tarball. So it's quite difficult to compare the gnulib files with what's in the tarball. And even more challenging is that gnulib tool may modify some of the files during importing. So as a package maintainer in Debian, you're supposed to kind of review the upstream code, and it's quite challenging to do this in a reasonable way. And probably for this reason, the xz incident used a gnulib-derived file, because people rarely scrutinize them. xz doesn't use gnulib directly in this way, but some of the files come from gnulib, including the malicious file. So there has been a gnulib package in Debian for a long time, but it's normally not used to build source packages. Rather, the upstream tarball is used with the vendored gnulib code. And this is something I'd like to see if we can change or improve somehow. Especially considering if there is a security bug in gnulib code. Patching all these packages for the gnulib code will be quite challenging, because it may be different versions of gnulib used for each package. And another challenge is that the tarballs often contain generated files that are not present in gnulib at all, but generated when building the tarball. So normally Debian packages should rebuild all the generated files to make sure we're building from source code. But this is quite fragile and tedious work, and it's really easy to miss checking this. And this may fail to build from source bugs eventually if there's some bug in one of these files. I think Debian has historically used the auto.reconf tool to regenerate some of these files, but I think that's based on a misunderstanding that auto.reconf is supposed to regenerate these files. That's not the intended purpose of that tool and never was. So it's a bit unfortunate that this practice is very strongly rooted. Also, a challenge is that auditing files for copyright reasons is also simpler if there are less files. So what can we do about this? Instead of using upstream tarballs, we can build a pound on gnulib and run the .bootstrap script to regenerate all the gnulib files and hopefully also the autoconf macros and so on. This works quite well. You can make it work. Init utils started using it, and I've realized there is a bunch of other packages that use this too. But there are some issues with doing it this way. There are three issues. The first is that this will use a different version of gnulib that upstream used. So init utils 2.5 tarball used one gnulib release, but when built for Debian, it used another gnulib. And this is not respecting upstream's choice of gnulib and can introduce serious bugs because gnulib doesn't promise any API or ABI stability. It just offers a latest version, and the maintainer is supposed to make that work. So what can we do about it? When I took over the gnulib package, I added a gnulib git bundle to it to ship all git commits ever part of gnulib, so it's possible during build to pick out the actual commit that were used. This is one improvement. And the .bootstrap script supports this by specifying a URL to the bundle and a particular version. Second problem is then that we still have lots of generated and vendored files in the tarball. And ideally, upstreams could publish a Git archive or stripped down or minimalized source tarball to solve this. And a lot of packages are prepared this way for the Git savvy people who are actually using the Git import style of packaging. Then you get this for free. But a lot of packages in Debian still use upstream tarballs with generated files. So one approach is then to use the files excluded mechanism to exclude all files that are not in upstream Git repository. That's what I propose, because then it becomes really clear that you're rebuilding from a clear upstream Git copy and not building the Debian package from some generated file with no auditing. Of course, we can just also ignore this problem, which is what we have been doing for a long time. So this is a way to improve, but of course, people may disagree with this. So that's one way to filter the tarball. Of course, the final step is that there is no centralized way to patch bugs. And if you are building in the Debian package that use gnulib this way, it will be possible to solve this. And I've introduced the DH gnulib patch system. And the idea is that when you're building this way, you set it up to invoke one command after the checkout of the gnulib and one command before using the gnulib code. And that allows this DH gnulib patch command to apply patches to the checked out gnulib copy. And of course, the gnulib package has to provide all these packages, all these patches, but that works against all versions, but that's in theory possible. And we check this during auto package test in debcii. So for your Debian rules files, if your upstream is using gnulib, you could first include or build depends on the gnulib package, include this makefile helper, run dh without autoreconf, because that's just based on a misunderstanding and causing problems, and the dash bootstrap script will supersede that. And there are two steps here. One pull step that adds the gnulib code to your build structure, and then gen to pull them in. And this is the code of that helper makefile. It's really short and simple. So I made this for one upstream project that I maintain, libntlm. It's an archaic old system, but it's a good pet project to test things on because it's quite short and it's a C-only library. The upstream, I ship a Git archive style tarball, and the Debian packaging of this now build depends on gnulib with this, and I build it this way. So there are some open issues or future work in this area is, and I've received some feedback that people don't find the repacking the tarball worth it. And I kind of agree, but then we are in the xz utils dilemma that we are importing a lot of files that may hide malicious code. Of course, you may actually audit all that code, but chances are that not everyone is, and that's what caused the xz bug. Another issue is this adds a build depends on Git, so this is really a bootstrapping issue, because then Git will be required for building packages. I think these cyclic dependencies aren't really an issue in Debian because it's a binary distribution, but it may cause problems when porting to a new architecture. I believe this will be cross-ported in the future, so that shouldn't be any problem, but at least it's a theoretical problem. And we could generalize this for packages that aren't using gnulib but uses similar .-bootstrap scripts that do similar things. Also, this way of using a Git bundle could be an inspiration for rethinking how to do Go packaging, because the Go ecosystem is quite Git based, and a lot of upstreams are picking random, hopefully tagged commits, but it happens that they pick random commits from other Go packages. And packaging all versions of a Go library in Debian is not feasible, but you could ship a Git bundle for the Go package, and then all dependent packages could pick out whatever commit they want. This is not how the Go team is approaching this now, but it's inspiration at least. So, thank you.
So,
any questions?
Any questions?
What what is the position of any other distribution that you know about the vendor in gnulib on their side? So is this effort Debian specific, or is it something that other distributions also care about? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I am part of the gnulib upstream project and helping, but I'm actually not aware of any of how Red Hat or Arch Linux or Gentoo or whatever actually are doing. I think it's similar to Debian, that this is kind of ad hoc, and most are using upstream tarballs, but I suspect that some people, maybe the homebrew people, actually prefer sometimes to build directly from upstream Git and then make an effort to run gnulib. But it's a good question. I don't think there is no one leading here, and no one is clearly behind either. I think it's quite similar between all distributions. But it could be worth looking into. Thanks.
Hi. If you are using Git instead of orig.tar.gz, would you look at possibly using a shallow clone instead of a full clone, or is there no advantage in doing that?
Do you mean a shallow clone of the gnulib or of the upstream project? Yeah, that would work. I mean, if you're using a Git archive style, that's essentially a copy of the latest Git commit, right? And I'm not sure. I mean, Debian is tarball centric, so before generating the Debian tarball, there has to be some Git cloning happening, and that could be shallow, and that would work fine. And for libntlm, that's identical to a Git archive release. And that's what I would recommend as well. There are packages that won't build in a shallow clone because they do introspection of the Git log or look at the Git tags, and Git tags are not always part of a shallow clone.
Okay. No further question, it seems. So,
Yep.
Simon, thanks again for your talk,
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
for your work on de-rendering and libraries.
Yes. Thank you.